Okay, hopefully that's better. Hopefully that's better. We'll see. Gonna have to hop on the YouTube. Listen to myself talk for a second, which is always weird. We'll see. Okay. It seems like it's working now. Hopefully. So, yeah. Let's get the chat talk in here. What else do I need? Stats. Okay. We're gonna wait a little more. Let people filter back in. Because apparently I just I don't know what happened. I just turned it off and turned it back on and it worked. So hopefully that fixed everything. We back. All right, cool, perfect. Okay. Sound good? Okay. When is the ban list coming out? I believe it's on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, for Japan. And then usually they'll give it like until we reach a certain set, or like they'll give it a month or something, and then it'll hit English. So we'll see. But yeah, it'll be good. All right, so we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm not gonna wait again like I did last time. Congrats, we back. Okay, perfect. All right, awesome. Pretty much everyone who was here was here. There's only like 4 people here anyways. So we'll go ahead and get started. So essentially what I did is I went through all the cards that Bandai has already banned/restricted and sort of categorized them, and that way we can sort of have like a framework in which to build upon like predictions and stuff like that. This list better shake the earth. Probably not. It's going to be a basic ass list. So I pretty much summed it up into like 5 categories. So if you read like all like the little notes that Bandai puts when they restrict a card, it kind of comes down to like these 5 things. So the biggest one by far is cards that just cheat memory or break the memory system. So number 1, like cards like Mega Digimon Fusion and HPD, like very, very clearly they just like, oh, you can just Digivolve into something for free or for very low cost. And that has proven to be a very broken effect, obviously. And we have stuff like Greymon X, which, again, just lets you Digivolve into like your 5 for 1 memory, which is broken. Geo Greymon, play a Tamer for free, broken. The Digisorption cards, Digivolve into your 5 for free. Reinforced Memory Boost, which is just a very cheaply costed recovery, since you play it for 6, and then you can delay it to gain back 3. So 3 memory for recovery is broken, and the only thing that's ever been a cheaper recovery is Jet Sylphie, which is also limited. So there's that. Eismon plays itself for free. Sunrise Buster plays a Tamer for free and then does minus DP for every Tamer you have, so it just like scaled with itself. So that card was broken. And of course the Anubismon, which plays Digimon from your trash for free. So yeah, all these cards just cheap memory. They're super busted. I'm sure there's others that we will talk about that could get on there. Next sort of section is cards that enable OTK. So these are cards that give you Security Attack +1 or Unsuspends for free. Bukamon gives jamming. And noticeably, we saw this in Mirage, so they can just consistently like unsuspend and swing at your security without having to fear of ever dying. Shaman X4 could just like repeat playing copies of itself, since you would draw 2, and then it would end of attack just put all its sources back under your Taiki, and then the Taiki would unsuspend. So you just keep doing that as long as you had 1 memory. Which, I mean, they ended up playing like Gravity Crush and Blinding Ray to do that. Magagamon has the unsuspend. Wereguru has the Sec +1 plus all the Guru unsuspends. Doru Gray has the Sec +1, and Grand Kuwaga, you can get Sec +2, and then you go into Grandis and you unsuspend. So yeah, these are all obvious enable OTK stuff. Unintended gameplay. So these are cards that basically Bandai didn't know that they would be broken, like the way they printed them. Harmony already came off. Yeah, we'll get there. So unintended gameplay is so calling from darkness, because the deletion is not a cost, it's an effect. You can do like weird shenanigans, like especially in purple, where you want to delete your own cards and then bring cards back from your trash. And I believe the actual description that Bandai posted with their ban of calling was that it created unintended gameplay loops, which is okay. There we go. Unintended gameplay. Itmon just made Beelzemon way too fast, and in general, I think Bandai just had to hit something from that Beelzemon deck, so they chose to hit this one for its speed, and I think that actually did a pretty good job of cutting the legs out from the deck. Ice Wall, Bandai said that it was doing a good job of being a defensive card, but it became too problematic at 4 copies, because you could just play one every turn and lock your opponent out of the game. Unintended gameplay. Apocalypse, where it just ended up being, instead of a Dark Master card, people would just play it in like purple good cards deck, completely fill their trash super fast with Dark Masters, and then slam this and mill the opponent out. Unintended gameplay. And then we have the choice restrict of Sayo and Co. with these other cards, which can make it so that you can always steal back the turn from the opponent and then get your like breeding phase, draw phase, all that stuff back. So unlike other cards like let's say Analog Youth, which like you can pass memory to your opponent and then gain the memory back, with Sayo and Co., since at the start of your opponent's turn and then you do all these memory gain effects, you legit just steal the turn and then restart your turn all the way back from fresh from the beginning, which is actually super broken. So it's a very good thing that they hit that really fast, because I think that was just way too good and obviously unintended gameplay. The next one is limits future card design. So these are pretty much, I mean, you can make the argument for like a lot of these cards that they limit future card design, but realistically, like I put these cards here specifically because they don't really fit anywhere else, and the only like reason that Bandai gave to like limit them is because they pretty much made purple too good. Like the Gabumon engine, plus having Garuru and Aizmon at level 4 being able to draw 3 trash to, just made purple gets like way too hard to make in the future, because they would always had to take these cards, this engine, into consideration for like turboing cards into your hand in trash. So they don't really fit anywhere else, and unfortunately Gabumon had to take like a huge L by getting unintentionally wrecked by this. But I don't know, maybe you could make the argument that the X's should have never been dual colored purple, and that probably would have fixed this issue, but here we are. And then the last one is cards that have just been meta for too long. That's literally the description that they gave for Savior Huck and Jet Sophie, like copy paste. It's I mean, I even have it pulled up here. We'll scroll down to it because it's actually the exact same thing, copy paste. That's when they all got unbanned. Let's see, where are we going? Savior Huck. Decks that use this card with BT16 Jetsmon have been dominating the metagame for longer than anticipated, greatly limiting viable decks in red. That's the description they give. And then like we go up to Jet Sophie. Decks that use this card have dominated the metagame for longer than anticipated, greatly limiting viable decks in yellow. They copy pasted it. It's the exact same reason. They basically said this deck has been meta for too long, and we want players to stop playing this deck. Like, this is limited. So Savior Hug, Jet Sophie, and Tommy's was kind of similar, where it's this card trashes multiple Digivolution cards from the bottom of a Digimon for a low cost and can prevent Digimon with no Digivolution cards from attacking. So basically like the stun effect. This ultimately limits the gameplay experience and causes frustration. Therefore, we have decided to restrict this to 1 per copy. I guess you could put this in limit futures card design, but that didn't really happen because, I mean, they unlimited it, and there's explanation for that. We'll get into unlimited reasonings later in the video, but this is pretty much the 5 categories that Bandai has. Yeah, Mirage about to get destroyed. Yeah, we're getting there. That's why I included this category, because Mirage definitely getting the hammer for that reason. That's my opinion. All right, so let's get into my predictions. So like I said, we're going to use this framework to kind of base my list off of, and that way I'm not just like making a wish list. Like there's actual reasoning for the cards that I'm picking. Mirage got to go. Yeah, I think Mirage is going to go, unfortunately. Based on this criteria, I think Mirage got to go. All right, so we'll get started with the Ukomons. That's number 1. I think everyone's just tired of the Uko rushdown strategies. Too many decks use Ukomons to like degenerate levels. Having said that, if we're going to go within the framework of like these categories, I think for sure the promo Ukomon is getting limited based on the fact that it does cheat memory. And also we've seen now that hatching is also kind of a broken mechanic, like hatching outside of like your breeding phase. So I do think for that reason, like combining those two effects in one card is just too good. So I think promo Uko definitely limit worthy. If we're talking about BT16 Uko, I don't know if it necessarily fits under any of these categories. Like, yes, it's obviously a good card, search and hatch, and it costs 1, which is kind of a detriment, but realistically it just makes it like the best turn 1 opener in the game, because it's just choke to 1, pass, next turn I raise, search 3, get my egg back, and then build up from there. So you can basically find a missing piece for free, so you can go up a line. It's a very good card, don't get me wrong, but I think if we're strictly going based off these criteria that Bandai has set precedent for, I don't think BT16 Uko can realistically get banned. I think this one, we're going to put it as come off the list just to show that it's not getting banned. I think this one can stay at 4, but I think promo Uko definitely can get hit to 1 for sure. We're going to move on to, so we have Numemon is kind of like the next problem deck that a lot of people are just tired of seeing. It's too good. Obviously something needs to be done about it, and people have sort of identified that there's sort of 3 problem cards. Obviously the Ukomon's at the bottom end, so we've already addressed that by limiting promo Uko. And then there is Nume X and Monze X, and it could go either way, honestly. So again, if we're going off the criteria, if we think about Nume X, this is basically a cheats memory card, because you can float all the way into a level 6 for free just by like deleting yourself, which you want to do. Your rushdown deck, you're gonna die just by swinging security, or your opponent has to deal with you, so they have to like kill you just to stop you from attacking them. I think this card is just like really good. I can see an argument 100% for limiting it, and I also see the argument because Monze X essentially is also a cheats memory card, because you can play a level 3 or a Numemon for free, plus you get the removal on top of it, and it's all turns, which does come up because sometimes you'll die on the opponent's turn, and you can use one of your float effects to play a Digimon, and then your Monze X will trigger, and your opponent is really sad because they don't realize that it's all turns effect. I don't think you hit both. I think you pick one, and then the deck... So you definitely limit the Uko, and then you pick either Nume or Monze to limit. And if I had... Me, personally, if I had to pick one, I think I pick Monze X. Yes, I agree. Monze X gets the hammer, because the free body plus the removal is just too much. In addition to when you consider that the regular Monzemon gives security +1. So essentially Monze X also becomes a beat stick. It swings for 2 checks, and then if you also have the Nume X in source, you don't care if it dies, because you just float into the Plat Nume anyways, or any other Numemon, and just keep doing it again. Or you can even just straight up give it jamming with the Satsuki Tamer, and then it's just 2 checks jamming every turn, plus all your like little bodies that you rush out. It's just extremely overwhelming. So I think Monze X, for me, for my book, I think this is the one that gets limited to 1. And if Monze X does get limited to 1, then I think Numemon can stay at 4 to keep sort of the deck's floater identity intact while losing some of like the free body beat stick type stuff that it has going on. So I think that'll, with Uko and Monze limited to 1, I think that deck brings the deck in line. And it's a yellow level 5 with so many good aces it can become into. Yes, that's true. Yellow is one of the best ace colors, especially like if you think about like cards, Valkyremon, Shadow Seraph Ace, stuff like that. I agree 100%. All right, moving on. We are going to talk about Magnamon. So this one, it's not really putting up numbers, but I think that has more to do with the fact that Numemon is so oppressive, and people have kind of figured out that matchup, and that Numemon kind of wins it like the majority of the time over the course of a long tournament. We've just seen Numemon come out on top like every time. So for that reason, I think the deck does have to be addressed, because if we hit Numemon, then Magnamon becomes a problem. So we might as well hit both. I've identified 4 cards that I think could potentially be hit. We'll start off with Patamon. Again, this is just basically free Evo into a level 4. A couple downsides. So you do have to have cards in your security. Patamon can whiff, and it also can only go into vaccines, which is not really a negative considering you're building around vaccine. I think, honestly, I'm gonna say Patamon can stay. And I'll tell you why. Because I think the main problem with Patamon is when it's in the armor engine. I agree. Patak has to not be able to interact with armors, and there's other ways to do that without limiting the Patamon itself, which is why, well, I guess we'll just skip to it. Awakening of the Golden Knight, I think, can be limited. So I think Patamon we can leave at 4. So we'll put this here. I'll edit this. Can come off the list. Not ban worthy. Okay. We'll switch that to that. Awakening of the Golden Knight, I think, has now fallen under cheats memory and I guess unintended gameplay and limits future card design. I mean, it falls under 3 categories essentially at this point. I think this card has to go. I think Magnamon X is too good. Skipping a level, yeah, it's too good. I think when you combine it with the Patamon and the Emissary, then you just can create like these weird scenarios where it's just like the Magnamon comes out and you like net gain memory and it's like unsurmountable advantage. So this also doesn't really hurt armor decks that much because like traditional like Magnamon blue armors, because Magna X can just digivolve over the level 4 Magna anyways, so it doesn't really hurt that. If anything, this just stops like other random armor decks from suddenly being like, oh, I'm also a Magna X deck, like ta-da. So I think Awakening can be limited to 1 for that reason, and I think it solves a lot of the problems with Magna X. Emissary of Hope, this is another cheats memory card. This is pretty much only a cheats memory card. It doesn't have too many other stuff like Awakening of the Golden Knights does. I think so. If we're gonna talk about Awakening and the fact that you can like turbo from level 4 to level 6, we have to talk about Emissary in the same way, where you can turn level 4 Rapid into Rapid X for 1 memory, delete things like suspend their whole board -4K, swing, and then if you deleted something, you gain 2 memory back. So you essentially gain a memory for digivolving into Rapid X. That's pretty broken. I think that's like interaction that might be too good, but Rapid X doesn't have any protection, so it's a lot easier to deal with, and it doesn't have blocker. So if you look at it from that angle, yeah, maybe if we get rid of Awakening and we limit it, and the deck turns into more of like a yellow Rapidmon armor focus, then yeah, maybe it's like a fast beatdown deck, and that might be acceptable because at least it doesn't have protection, and other decks have more ways to interact with it and not feel bad about the gameplay. So I think overall, I'm okay with Emissary. Like I could see it getting hit. Like I can understand the argument for it, but I think overall, I think Patamon and Emissary stay as long as Awakening goes. If Awakening doesn't go, then I think Patamon or Emissary definitely need to be looked at. So I think it's like an either or situation. We'll see what Bandai decides to do, but I do think if justifiably Nume gets it, then Magna does also need to get a touch, and I think it has to be one of these. All right, moving on. I'm going to use Blinding Ray, sort of a transitionary card, because it is obviously played in Magnamon decks, but also just to talk about these options that give you memory for free. So I have Hammer Spark here too, and you can talk about Gravity Crush and Jack Ray too, but I'm not going to talk about them because I think those cards have like at least some downside. Because, I mean, okay, technically Blinding Ray has a downside, right? You trash your own security. But as we've seen now, yellow card design has turned into trashing your own security actually benefits you. So this is no longer like a downside. If anything, Blinding Ray is actually like gives you a bonus on both fronts. Like you want to trash your own security and you want the 2 memory. I think the card has become too good for that reason. So I would like to see Blinding Ray limited. I mean, it cheats memory. It has unintended gameplay now because trashing your own security is now a bonus, and it limits future card design with other cards that trash stuff. So I think overall, Parabolic Junk. Okay, yeah, whatever. Like, black decks need that card. They can keep it. So Blinding Ray, I think, needs to go to 1. It's probably not gonna happen, but meh. Yeah, this is more of a wishlist card, but I think you can justify it, like, because it fits like so many of these banned categories. Hammer Spark now. I mean, Hammer Spark has always just been really good, especially now with blue hybrid decks kind of coming back into the meta. Like we haven't seen too many blue decks use Hammer Spark because they've been using Mem Boost and Training sort of to take their place. But now that hybrid decks can't use those as much, like yeah, you can use trainings, but I mean, you can't actually digivolve your Tamer into a Digimon with the Training, and like, it's a little slow. It needs a turn to set up, and hybrid decks are all about being like fast and like being always on the play. you're gonna see 3-4 Hammer Sparks back in blue decks for sure, especially Ancient Garurumon decks. So I think Hammer Spark should probably get looked at. It's also Security Bomb, just like when you check in security, you just gain 2 memory, steal the turn back. Pretty broken. So realistically, I don't think this card is gonna get hit, but I think it's probably like about time that this card just goes down. Like I think it's time for Hammer Spark to get limited, unfortunately. Sad days for blue players, but I think it's just the truth. All right, we'll move on to Heaven's Judgment. I'm going to put this one under unintended gameplay because when this card was released, there was no such thing as 3 color cards. And now, for some reason, every 3 color card is either yellow or green as one of their colors, which means it's just an automatic minus 24k that you can split however you want for 7 memory. I mean, removal options are always kind of a hard sell in general, just because they frequently cost at least 7 memory, so you're pretty much always passing your turn, which means like you're slowing yourself down to remove a body on your opponent's board. And in general, good gameplay is that you should always advance your own board. So if you're not advancing your own board and taking the time to instead sort of regress your opponent's board, that's typically not something you want to be doing. That's like negative tempo, essentially. So that's kind of why removal options have always just been kind of balanced / like sometimes unusable, honestly, unless you're like literally like BLStar or security control, which kind of bases their entire game plan around cheating out removal options for low memory, whether it be like adding them to security or literally just BLStar's effect of playing them for less cost. But I think a card like Heaven's Judgment, which can specifically split up its removal in 6k increments, means you can deal with multiple bodies. You can deal with one big body. In yellow, there are effects that let you gain back memory when you delete stuff with minus DP. With the inclusion of aces now, sometimes you can just play this for straight up 3 memory instead because you get the overflow after killing their guy. I think that's obviously the intended drawback of ace cards. But at the same time, I just think minus 24k for 7 memory is just like too much. When you look at the precedent of like minus DB cards, like Wyvern's Breath is minus 15 for 8. So why should minus 24 for 7 be a thing? You know, especially in these decks that run 3 color boss monsters like Magnamon X, like you're gonna have the Magnamon X. Like it's not gonna be some hard thing for you to do to get 3 colors on your board. It's just one Digimon. You know what I mean? So, I mean, realistically, this card probably doesn't get hit. This is a wishlist card for me for sure, but I think within the context of unintended gameplay, I think it's definitely hittable. All right, moving on to... This is a card that I don't see people talk about, but after playing some ancient decks, I think it's high time this card gets like a stern look at, because, I mean, face value, this card is like just like kind of whatever. Like, okay, draw 3, trash the 2 cards I didn't add, which is like kind of a detriment, whatever. Not anymore, but it was at the time. And then when one of your level 5 or higher Digimon's deleted, as long as they have sources, you can gain a memory and hatch. So at the time, this wasn't really like a super abusable card until like, I think like there was like Lilith Loop decks that abused it. I don't remember if Lilith Loop had analog and MDF at the same time. I honestly don't remember it. If I remember correctly, I think they were forced to use the Aosmon Tamer for their white source, or the dual tamer Matt Tai that was white. But even still, like we pretty much saw analog like at its most abused in purple decks, because those were the decks that could use all the effects of analog the best. Like they wanted to search, they wanted cards in their trash, and they could delete their own level 5 or higher Digimon to gain the memory back and hatch, and then kind of redo their whole game plan. I think most recently we've seen this in Fenrir with Hellluger. So they would just go into Hellluger for 3 memory, or even hard drop it for 7. Their stack would die. They would do their Hellluger effect, right? Draw 2, and then pop your guy, analog, hatch, put the Luga back that they added back with the Hellluger, and then set up their whole stack for next turn, right? So that was kind of like the most recent thing that we've seen analog kind of abused in. But now with the ancient decks here, and the warps that delete, and then the ancient on deletions, and then the analog, and then also the Louis, and the Bond Tamers not being once per turn, I think Analog Youth, it's at this point it falls under unintended gameplay, cheats memory, and limits future card design. Because now anything level 5 or higher that deletes itself is gonna probably be able to abuse Analog Youth. So although the generic search is good for like a lot of like low tier decks that like have no other search power, like maybe like a 2-color deck that has like can't use boost or whatever and needs search, like you would just chuck in Analog because that's like the only thing you could play. And it costs 2 memory. Yes, it's cheap. Exactly. So I think it's just high time now for Analog Youth to get a serious look at. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, and I think Bandai said that they were basing their ban list based off the Grand Asia Open tournament results, and I don't recall seeing any like Analog Youth abuse decks in those lists. But I do think that this card is definitely worth taking a look at. If not this list, then the following list when people realize that these ancient decks are a little out of control by abusing this card. All right. Davison Ken, BT 16, I believe. Yeah, the dual teamer from last set, not the new one. Cheats memory. Playing the rookie for free every turn is disgusting. And if they get out 2 of these bad boys, like within like the first 3 turns of the game, it's very difficult to come back against Imperial. Like you specifically have to be playing cards that prevent them from playing cards by effects. So the Floodgate rookies or Crimson Blaze. If you're not running those and they set up 2 Davis Kens on you, like there's almost no coming back. Especially now that they have so much protection, like the Partition, Primo, the Ace. Like you can't swing, you can't get rid of them. Like if you try to swing over them and you have less sources, like boom, you just get aced. Like it's too much, I think, when combined with the value of this Davis Ken, because it's already a struggle to try to find an angle to remove their board through like all their like protections and like dodges and stuff like that. And then if you finally do remove their board, if they have Davis Ken out, they can just do it again next turn for free, and they strip all your sources. So it's like very difficult to come back once they get 2 of these guys out. Like if it was just at 1, I think it'd be fine. Like they saw their 1 of, okay, fair play. Like the game's a lot harder now, whatever. When they see 2, the game almost becomes like, I don't know, it's like a Sisyphus level effort. Like you just try to roll that rock up the hill and it just keeps falling back down on you. It's really bad. So I do think if you get rid of Numamon and if you do hit Magnamon, then Imperial becomes like the next clear frontrunner for best deck in the format. And I think it would almost be too good at that point. So if I would like to see this card get touched. Will it get touched? I don't know, but I would like to see something done to Imperial on this list. Last but not least, Mirage. Come on, I want Bandai. This is what I want Bandai to do. I want a picture of Mirage Galgamon, and they just copy paste this text. Decks that use this card have dominated the metagame longer than anticipating, greatly limited viable decks in blue. For this reason, we've decided to restrict this card to 1 copy per deck. That's exactly what I want Bandai to do. I don't want anything else from them. Just put Mirage, just put a picture of Mirage right here, and then copy paste this text. That's it. Perfect ban list. Right there. That's a perfect ban. Nothing more needs to be said. Mirage has just been too good for too long. It's like, I don't know. I think just based off like history, like Bandai's gonna hit this card. Bandai's gonna hit. Gotta rewind. I missed this stream. I think you can on YouTube, and I will repost this as a video also. So yeah, do not worry about it. Also, we just see Mirage just kind of thrown into like anything that's blue and missing a boss. So like Grace Nova, boom, Mirage deck all of a sudden. Like Hexablow, boom, Mirage deck. Like I don't know. I think it's high time for this deck this card to be limited, because that really fixes a lot of the problems with Mirage. I mean, you could make arguments for like maybe like one of the Tamers, like one of the Thomases, maybe Burst Mode, maybe I don't know, something else in the deck. I don't know. But I think if you just get rid of this Mirage, I think the deck is just Denzos. And that's it. That's all there is to it. All right. So ban list predictions there. Now let's talk about cards that can come off the list. Okay. So there have been, I believe, 2 cards that have come off the list. So we've seen Tommy and Savior Huckmon come off the ban list, if I'm not mistaken. I think those are the only 2 cards that are come off the ban list. So let's read Scamdie's reasoning for unbanning these cards, and then we can base our logic off any other unbans based on that. So let's find these unbans. Let's see. Yeah, card ban lifted. Yeah. All right. BT16 Savior Huckmon. In past game environments, when this card was widely used, its effect and BT6 Jesmon's effect that played Sistermon cards were very powerful, and when the unsuspending effect in this card's inherited effect was paired with Jesmon's Piercing, security stacks could be rapidly worn down without being affected by defensive strategies such as Blocker. However, we have determined that decks that can counter these strategies have increased in recent game environments. Therefore, we have decided to change this card from restricted to 1 to unrestricted. So basically said that the future card design that has been created since this card was limited kind of stopped this OTK from ever happening. And I mean, honestly, Jesmon was not even that good to begin with in English. It was like never that good. It was pretty much a best of 1 hero. And over here in NA, it just really didn't do much. So this is kind of a JP ban. So in general, this card was not doing anything really that much anyways. And then it got limited, and then Jesmon did nothing. It got unlimited. Jesmon still does nothing. So this channel stays a Jesmon hater channel. All right, Tommy Himi. In past game environments, when this card was widely used, this card's on-play effect was a factor that allowed decks that used hybrid cards as main cards to immediately attack more easily than predicted and move more effectively than decks that required multiple standard Digivolutions, creating an imbalance in play. Even among hybrid decks, effects in blue hybrid decks that prevented attacking and blocking were particularly strong, and this led to a heavy burden on other decks. However, in recent game environments, there has been an increase in cards that can counter Digivolution card removals and can counter effects to prevent attacking blocking. Therefore, we have decided to change this card from restricted to 1 to unrestricted. That honestly did not make any sense to me. They basically, I don't know what this means. Increasing cards that can counter Digivolution card removals. There's no way to counter your Digivolution cards getting removed. Like, if anything, there are cards that just don't care if they have sources or not. Like, I guess at the time that Tommy was limited, I guess Digiburst was kind of a thing, but then Bandai stopped printing Digiburst. So maybe that's what they were talking about, like, oh, we realized Digiburst is bad and we stopped printing it, so now we don't care about Digivolution cards getting removed or not. Maybe that's the angle they're trying to go for there. Can counter effects that prevent attacking blocking. I guess this is referring to DNA, since you can do that. X antibody, yeah. Oh, okay, that's true. You could just slot an X antibody, then you have a source, so you can swing. Well, don't you get stunned regardless with Korikaku, right? It doesn't matter if you gain sources. Korikaku. When Digivolving, if a card with hybrid in its traits or Tommy Himi is in this Digimon Digivolution cards, when your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can't attack or block until the end of their next turn. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if they gain a source. So, yeah. Redirect, that's true. So redirect doesn't count as a block. They can't remove the X antibody. Oh, true. Okay, yeah, that's a good way to, yeah, that's correct. All right, so I guess that part of their explanation makes sense, but I mean, realistically, I think they just decided that Blue Hybrid has been doing nothing without this card, and they unlimited Tommy, and Blue Hybrid still did nothing until they printed like a completely new line and changed the deck entirely. So pretty much the logic behind both of these unbans is that the new cards that have been printed kind of circumvent or don't care about what made these cards broken, and now these cards aren't broken anymore. That's pretty much what they're trying to say, essentially, for both of these unlimits. So, with that in mind, let's go back to the list. Let's see what card could possibly meet that criteria and be unbanned. All right, I think it's time we have this Greymon X discourse now. I think it's time. Okay. Yes, Greymon decks suck really bad right now. Just pure vanilla Greymon decks are no good. They're bad. They're barely tier 2. They're barely B tier. They're just like, they don't do anything. They're too slow. They're too piece reliant. They don't have a dedicated searcher card, like 2-color searcher, right? Because they have to run red base. because since Greymon X is only at 1, you're forced to run the red Greymon X, which can only digivolve over red. So you get like put in this weird position where you have to run the red Agumons, because if you run the black Agumons, then you get stuck where you don't have a Greymon. Anyways, you guys know. Greymon players, I'm not saying anything new to you guys. Here's the thing, though. Unlike Savior, Huck, and Tommy, I think Greymon X is still too good. Because, okay, Savior Huck doesn't really do anything for, like, future Jesmon support. Like, yeah, okay, you can play a Sistermon when digivolving and you get an unsuspend. The deck already does that anyways. Like, this doesn't change what the deck does. It doesn't improve the deck in any way. It just gives it, like, another option. Tommy. Blue Hybrid doesn't even run Tommy anymore. Like, Source Strip is borderline irrelevant. Especially Source Strip that you can't pick. Only stripping the bottom is pretty mid. Stunning is not as good. There are ways to run around it. And you have to attack to activate Tommy's effect. So you're just going to get run an ace. Like, I think Tommy, as we have seen, just does nothing now. I haven't seen any decks playing Tommy now or in the future. I think this card is borderline irrelevant at this point. Greymon X, if it came back to 4, is not borderline irrelevant. This would boost Greymon up to tier 1. Is that a problem right now? No. They gave those decks better cards, though. Greymon hasn't gotten anything relevant yet. Hasn't gotten anything relevant yet. We just saw okay, people have been crying, unlimit cross 4, cross doing nothing, cross sucks dick. They just released the new BT19 cross support. Guess what? It's broken. If they made cross 4 unlimited and they released that new support, it'd be way too good. They're gonna do the same thing with Greymon. Like, you think they're not gonna print new Greymon support? Of course they're gonna print new Greymon support. And if they have the Greymon X, like any metal Greymon that digivolves for 3 is going to be broken. They have to make Metal Greymon mid at this point if they unlimit Greymon X. They would have to make it mid, which might be fine just for the protection and the boost in speed. Like, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, if you ask me, Greymon X still cheats memory. It still enables it. Like, it doesn't enable it. It cheats memory, and it limits future card design. That's two strikes. He's not quite at 3. He's not 3 strikes, you're out. Some of these cards are 3 strikes, you're out. But I think, for me, personally, Greymon X, I think especially the limits future card design angle, I think that one is too powerful for this card to be unlimited. Because, I mean, who's to say? Like, any other Metal Greymon that gets printed that's even remotely good immediately makes this card broken. Immediately. Like, I think that's just enough of an argument to keep it limited. I mean, that's not even talking about the protection. Like, yeah, you could... Protoform didn't even exist when Greymon X got printed, actually. There was no Protoform. There was only the regular X antibody. So if you combine Greymon X with Protoform, you can hella reduce Evo cost. Yeah, but it has a 3-cost Evo. No, it doesn't. Yeah, oh, no. I think if it costed 1 to slide over Greymon, it might actually be, like, more fair, I guess, I would say. Because, I mean, very, very rarely would I see people actually digivolve this over their level 3. They almost always had the level 4 Greymon to slide it. So, for me, personally, I think Greymon X, you get no protection with Proto. I mean, I guess that's true. Actually, no, I don't even guess that's true. That is true. You don't get protection with Proto. But, I don't know. Yeah, okay, so you play the old X antibody. That's still fine. You get aggro, I guess. I don't know. I think if they wanted to bring back Greymon X to 4, they would have to severely limit the power level of future Greymon support and, like, pretty much center the entire archetype around this card. And it's the exact same problem we have with HPD, where HPD is still around, and now every single green level 6 has to cost 5 or more. Tyrant costs 6. Like, that's the problem. Like, is that what you want? That's fine. That's fine with me. Okay, let's unlimit Greymon X, and let's make every single War Greymon cost 5, and let's make every single Metal Greymon cost 4. then it's balanced. Isn't it X antibody as a rule? So because protoform is mandatory, it has to put itself, when you would get deleted, it has to put itself to like security. And then you would trigger the Greymon X, but since you don't have the protoform in your source anymore, you can't protect. Metal Grays can cost 4. Yeah, I mean, they have to now. They have to. So I think, and that's the problem with the Raid War Greymon, or the Raid Metal Greymon, is that it costs 3. So you just go and do it for 1. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Limits future card design. That's exactly case in point. The BT8 one cost 4. Yes, it did. And that one was good. Or like reasonable, I guess. Or whatever it was. I don't even think it was BT8. It might have been BT8. I don't know. The Digivolve one. That one was fine. But the Raid one? For 1? Nah. Any future Metal Greymon would have to cost 4. Right off the bat. Like bar none if this card comes back to 4. And I think any future War Greymon would have to cost 5. Just to balance it out. Actually, maybe it's a little unfair. They can cost 4 still. It's not HP because you can't do it like green where you can go from 5 to 6. So that's where HPD gets broken. But since this is only from 4 to 5, I guess. I don't think Tyrant is the greatest example of HPD's influence IMO because Tyrant plays a body for 8 less. But yeah, I also agree HPD is a problem. I mean, that's true. I think that's the reason why Tyrant costs 6 instead of 5. But I mean, if we look at Mega Gargomons, they all cost 4 or 5. What else? Leopardmons cost 3, but I guess those are like X's. I don't know. I think Leopardmon is like an example of like a good modern green deck. Bloom costs 4. Bloom costs 4 and it gains memory back. So when you combine that with it, like you guys remember HPD Bloom shenanigans when you just gain memory back for digivolving to Bloom. HPD is actually broken in Tyrant. I agree. I think in Tyrant, if you see you're one of HPD, you're playing a completely different game. I think you're just so much like on the play if you see that card. It's way better. So I don't know. For me personally, I think specifically, I'm gonna straight up just put it down here. Limits future card design. Greymon X. I don't think any can come off the list. Like I don't think there's any way. Bandai would have to completely like design Greymon around this card. And at that point, wouldn't you want like more interesting Greymon support? Like I would rather see like a reprinted Greymon X that did something a little less degenerate. Like yeah, maybe it can still reduce the cost, but like get rid of the protection. Like it can't have both. It's too good. It is too much. All right, what else can come off the list? I've seen some people talk about Argomon. I don't think Argomon can come off anymore. Blossomon for sure cannot come off. Like people think that okay, Blossomon doesn't have the inheritables, so it's worse. But Blossomon is a vegetation, which makes it actually a lot better just because of the archetype. So Blossomon for sure has to stay at 1, unfortunately. Argomon, I don't know. And I'm not even referring to like the new Argomon support because it has nothing to do with Digisorption, so it's kind of irrelevant in that deck. It's just a name. But I think just in general, just giving... If I'm being honest, here's what I want to see. I want to see HPD go to 0, and I want to see all future green level 6s cost 3 memory. That's what I want to see. I want to see HPD to 0, and I want Leopardmon to be like the new standard for green. That's what I want. Okay. HPD has been fucking green for too long. We're like, the power budget for green is being like 99% spent on HPD. It can't stay around. It needs to go. Free my color. Free my color, please. All right. Reinforce memory boost. Let me think about it. Setcon doesn't exist. I mean, if you look at it from that angle, then maybe. I don't know. I still think just the delay to gain 3 memory, I think that on its own might just be too good. Because, I mean, think about it this way. If you look at cards that recover 1, I think the baseline standard is What's the one card that just recovers one straight up? It's an option. Holy Wave? No. Yeah, Holy Wave. This costs 6 memory, and it's just straight up recover 1, right? Reinforce also costs 6 memory, but you get to look at the top 2, pick which one you want to recover, add the other one to your hand, and then next turn you can delay it to gain back 3 memory. I think that's still a little too good, unfortunately, just like as a generic card. Like, I think even outside of security control, I think we would even see like Yellow Hybrid come back if this card came back to 4. So I think this card stays limited. Eismon, perfectly balanced. Yeah. That stays limited. Sunrise Mister stays limited. Numas Bond stays limited. Let's see, Bukamon. Maybe if Mirage gets the hammer, Bukamon might be able to come back, just to give a little boost to like the generic blue decks. But then I think maybe Garurumon might abuse it, so I don't know. Magna Enjimon and Magna Enjimon Ace are the most standard healing in yellow too. Yeah, that's true. Those cost 4 and 7, so yeah. Alright. Cross 4, definitely not often. New support. Makao, no. Weguru, no. Doru Gray. I've seen some people ask for Doru Gray back. I don't think so. I think even though you probably wouldn't max it out in like a Dexter Rugumon deck, just because the purple black Doru Gray is like too important to the strategy of like being able to like you taunt them with the level 4 Digivolve into the Doru Gray, they swing, and then you use the effect to Digivolve into Doru Goro for free. So I think just based on that play, I don't think you max this one out, but I forget, what does it give protection against? Minus DP? Doru Gray. Prevents effects from deleting it or reducing its DP until the end of your opponent's next turn. That's pretty good removal. Alright, protection. Well, it doesn't stop protection from lingering DP, but if Manze X gets the hammer, that's kind of out of the meta. Alpha or Yukon, still one of the most broken bosses ever printed. Yeah. I think just because of the Sec +1, I think this card probably stays limited. I think the protection is fine. Like, it's almost borderline irrelevant at this point, but the Sec +1 might make it too good. Yeah. Grand Kawaga stays restricted for sure. Calling for sure. Impmon? Unfortunately, no, I don't think so. I think Beelzemon is just a little bit too degenerate when it's at full power. Like, it's just too casino, and it's not fun to play against. So, I think for that reason, this probably just stays at 1. Icewall 1, Pocky 1/1. The Choice Restrict stays. Gabu's. I would like to see a Gabu get unlimited. Which one could get unlimited? I think Gabu X can come off the list realistically, especially if Garuru X stays limited. I think Gabu X can come back. I think its effect is a lot less generic because it's search top 4, and then you have to add a Garurumon or X antibody card, and then you can trash. If you don't add, then you don't trash. So it also gives you a little bit more of this protection effect that I think Garurumon needs. Like, just tribal Garurumon, I think, needs this effect back so bad. Like, relying on the old Garuru X is just no bueno for the deck. So I think this card can come back, but if this card comes back, then every other Garuru card has to stay limited, 100%. I think, especially the on deletion one, draw 2, trash 1. I think we just see too much cycle. X antibody cards are kind of generic. Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. Maybe you could see Leviamon run this card, but Leviamon's not doing anything anyways, so I think it's fine for this card to get unlimited. Garuru and Eismon are definitely staying on the list. Jet Sylphie. I think with all the new hybrid support, I think Jet Sylphie has to stay at 1. I think even like next format with the purple hybrid, I believe. I think it's too good. Jet's coming out? Nah, I don't think so. Unless Bandai really wants to push hybrids, I think Jet stays limited. Set her free? No, it's too good. Gabu X might make the ancient loop too crazy though. Maybe. So let me think about it. Would be deleted in battle. Return 2 from trash bottom deck. I mean, you could still actually play the one of now, which I think realistically is probably true. I think you should. Add 2 cards with Greymon or X antibody in their names. Yeah. So I think that's probably a good call. I think it might make the ancient Gabu deck that much more faster. The deck is fine as is with just the current Gabu X. So I don't know. This is a maybe. This is a maybe. I'm not as certain about this one as I am about anything else, really. I don't even take anything else off, I guess. So, no. Yeah, I'm just not certain about it. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Jet Selfie not getting unbanned. Now you also have a purple source to run the other Lobo. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's actually a good call. So, yeah, probably not then. Limits feature card design still, unfortunately. These 2 cards should have never been dual color. They should have just been mono blue. That would have saved Garurumon. But alas, here we are. All right, so that's the ban list talk. Those are the predictions. If I missed anything, if you think I'm stupid, if you're a Greymon X Coper, comment, like, subscribe. Later, gamers.